My son and daughter-in-law were throwing my 67th birthday party. My wife whispered, "Grab your bag. We're leaving now. Act like nothing's wrong." I thought she was joking until she locked the car doors and said, "Something's very, very wrong. Look at this." What she showed me was evidence I never expected. My son wanted to harm me, and he almost succeeded. But before I tell you what happened next, I need to know, where are you watching this from? Comment your city below. Your support helps this story reach others who need this warning. And if you've ever felt something was wrong but couldn't prove it, you're not alone. Now let me take you back to that night. The ballroom looked perfect. Golden balloons, white leaves everywhere, a banner reading, "Congratulations, Douglas Peton. 40 years of excellence." My son Trevor had outdone himself. At 67, after building Peton Investment Group to $16.88 million, this should have been one of the proudest nights of my life. I stood near the bar, surrounded by 150 guest colleagues, old friends, neighbors from our Gold Coast building. They all wanted to shake my hand, tell me they'd miss me at the office. "Dad, you doing okay?" Trevor appeared beside me, his hand on my shoulder. At 38, he looked confident in his navy suit. "You look pale." Truth was, I felt dizzy. The room had tilted moments ago. "Just tired, son. Long week." "You've been saying that a lot lately." He frowned. "Maybe sit down." "I'm fine." I squeezed his arm. "Thanks for organizing this. Means everything. Anything for you, Dad. You've earned this retirement." I'd been having these spells for months. Fatigue, dizziness, memory lapses, Caroline called. Senior moments. The worry flickered in her eyes. Trevor had been concerned to making sure I took my vitamins every morning. "Health is wealth, Dad," he'd say, handing me the bottle. "Good son, attentive son." Or so I thought. Across the room, Caroline stood rigid near the entrance. My wife's face was drawn, shoulders tense. She'd been quiet all evening. I'd asked twice if something was wrong. Both times she said she was fine. But 43 years of marriage taught me when she was lying. She caught my eye. Even 30 feet away I saw it. Fear, raw terror. Caroline moved through the crowd, her cream dress swishing. She leaned close, breath warm against my ear. "We need to leave." Her voice shook right now. "Don't ask questions. Just trust me." I searched her face. Her hand gripped mine painfully tight. "Caroline. Now Douglas, please." In 4 decades together, I'd never heard that tone. Pure fear. I set my glass down. We made excuses. Forgotten doctor's appointment. Trevor looked disappointed. "Feel better, Dad. We'll celebrate soon." He hugged me, arms strong around my shoulders. The drive to our penthouse was silent, except for Caroline's ragged breathing. She drove fast, knuckles white on the wheel. Questions burned in my throat, but her rigid posture stopped me. We pulled into the underground garage. Caroline killed the engine but didn't move. She reached into her purse, pulled out a tablet. Trevor's tablet. Read this. Her voice broke. All of it. The screen showed a messaging app. Trevor's messages. My eyes found the first one from someone named Derek Brooks. I read it once. Then again, the words made no sense. "The compound is ready. It'll be in his drink tonight. 10 minutes after he drinks it, his heart will stop. He has a history. No one will suspect a thing." My vision blurred. The tablet shook in my hands. "Keep reading," Caroline whispered. I scrolled. More messages, dates going back months, details about dosages, about timing, about symptoms that would look natural, about vitamins laced with poison about me. My son, the boy I'd raised, loved, trusted, had been planning to kill me. The next message confirmed it. Perfect. 6 months of preparation. Tonight we finish it. Your father won't suffer. Quick, clean, untraceable, and then the money is yours. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The garage walls pressed in. Douglas Caroline's hand covered mine. "I found these 3 days ago." I've been trying to figure out what to do. But tonight was supposed to be she couldn't finish. She didn't need to. Tonight was supposed to be my last night alive. We made it upstairs somehow. I don't remember the elevator ride. The penthouse felt foreign, like someone else's home. Carolyn guided me to the couch, but I couldn't sit, couldn't stop pacing. This is a mistake. The tablet shook in my hand. Someone hacked his phone. It's fake. Douglas. No. I turned to face her. Trevor wouldn't. He's our son, Caroline. I know who he is. Tears streamed down her face. You think I wanted to believe it? I've spent 3 days praying I was wrong. 3 days. The words hit like a slap. You've known for 3 days. How do you tell your husband his son is trying to murder him? The word hung between us. Rad the rest, she whispered. All of it. I scrolled through more messages. 6 months of planning. 6 months of Trevor discussing dosages with Derek Brooks, Rebecca's brother, a chemist. 6 months of questions about symptoms, about making it look natural. One message from 4 months ago stopped me cold. Trevor, he's getting weaker. The fatigue is noticeable. How much longer, Derek? 2 more months. Then we increase for the final push. Slow poisoning is an art. I barely made it to the bathroom before I vomited. When I returned, Carolyn sat with her face in her hands. I collapsed beside her. Tell me how you found these. She took a shaky breath. Wednesday morning 3 days ago. Trevor said I could pick up his tablet from their apartment. He'd left it here last week. I nodded numb. I went to Lincoln Park. Trevor was at the gym. Rebecca was showering. The tablet was on their kitchen counter screen lit. A notification popped up from Derek. Something about the compound being ready. Her voice cracked. Douglas, I stood in their kitchen reading how they were going to kill you, how they'd been doing it for months, how tonight would be the final dose, how your heart would stop and everyone would think it was natural. The realization crashed over me. My vitamins. Caroline nodded. Every morning for 6 months. Trevor started that routine. Remember said you needed to be healthier for retirement. Health is wealth, Dad. I heard his voice in my head, saw his smile as he handed me the bottle each morning. My son had been killing me with a smile. I took pictures with my phone. Caroline continued, then left before Rebecca came out. I went home and I didn't know what to do. Call the police. But what if I was wrong? What if there was an explanation for 6 months of messages about poisoning me? I know, but he's our son. I kept hoping. She broke off sobbing. I pulled her close. We sat on the same couch where we'd celebrated Trevor's college acceptance, toasted at his wedding where he'd been planning my death. Tomorrow. Caroline's voice was firm. Now first thing, hospital blood test. Caroline, no arguments. We need proof. Real proof. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize forever. But if I'm right, her eyes met mine. If I'm right, our son has been murdering you for 6 months. I wanted to argue, wanted to defend him, wanted to believe there was some explanation, but I couldn't. Deep down, I knew she was right. Okay, I whispered. Tomorrow, first thing. Outside our windows, the city glittered. Somewhere out there, Trevor was wondering why we'd left his perfect party early. Somewhere out there, my son was waiting for me to die. Northwestern Memorial Hospital's waiting room smelled like antiseptic and anxiety. Caroline and I had been sitting in those uncomfortable plastic chairs for 3 hours. My wife hadn't let go of my hand since we arrived. Her grip tight, the kind of hold you give someone when you're afraid they might disappear. I kept thinking about those messages. 6 months Trevor had been poisoning me, slipping something into those vitamins he insisted I take every morning. For your health, Dad, he'd say, and I'd believed him. Mr. Peton. A nurse appeared. Dr. Hayes will see you now. Dr. Hayes was maybe 50 with graying hair and eyes that had delivered bad news too many times. He gestured for us to sit, but Caroline remained standing, arms crossed tight. Mr. Peton. He began, his tone making my stomach drop. I've reviewed your blood work 3 times. I even sent samples to 2 different labs to confirm. He paused. You have elevated levels of a potassium-based compound in your system. Significantly elevated. What does that mean? My voice came out. It means someone has been poisoning you slowly, methodically. He pulled up results on his computer. Based on the accumulation patterns, I'd estimate 6 months of exposure. 6 months. The messages had been right. How bad is it? Caroline's voice trembled. Dr. Hayes turned to face us both. Mr. Peton, at current levels, you have perhaps 1 to 2 weeks before the toxin causes cardiac arrest. The room tilted. 1 to 2 weeks. Trevor hadn't just been planning to kill me. He'd been actively killing me for half a year. Every morning when he handed me those vitamins, every concerned phone call checking on my health, he'd been counting down to my death. Can you treat it? Caroline demanded. We can begin chelation therapy immediately to reduce the toxin levels, but the damage is extensive. We'll do everything we can, but you need to understand whoever did this came very close to succeeding. It was our son. The words came out flat. The words came. Trevor, the vitamins he gave me. That's how he did it, isn't it? Dr. Hayes' professional mask cracked, revealing something that looked like horror. I'll need to report this to the authorities. We already have evidence. Caroline said, her voice harder now. Message is proof of intent, but we need this as scientific confirmation. I'll prepare a full toxicology report for law enforcement. Dr. Hayes extended his hand. Mr. Peton, start treatment immediately and avoid any contact with whoever did this until they're in custody. In the parking garage, Caroline and I sat in silence. Around us, Chicago carried on cars, honking people, rushing the world, spinning forward, while mine had ground to a halt. My son had poisoned me. My son had looked me in the eyes every morning for 6 months and handed me death in a pill bottle. What do we do now? Caroline finally asked. I looked down at my hands, the same hands that had held Trevor when he was born, taught him to throw a baseball, shaking his hand when he joined my company. They were shaking now. Now I turned to my wife. And for the first time since reading those messages, I felt something other than shock. I felt rage. Cold, clear, focused rage. Now we fight back. Trevor wanted to kill me for that money. I started the engine. He's about to learn exactly what his father is capable of when he's fighting for his life. We had 1 week, maybe 2, but it would be enough. Thursday afternoon, Caroline and I sat across from Raymond Foster in his downtown Chicago office. The lawyer was 65, silver-haired, with the kind of steady presence that came from decades of handling family cases gone wrong. His office overlooked Michigan Avenue, the city carrying on below like nothing had changed. Mr. Peton, Raymond said, studying the messages Caroline had forwarded, "These are damning, but they won't hold up in court." Obtained without a warrant from Trevor's personal device, any defense attorney gets them thrown out, so he walks free. Bitterness flooded my voice. Not if we do this right. We need legally obtained evidence. Raymond leaned forward. We set a trap. Invite them to dinner at your home. Your property means we can legally record everything. If Trevor attempts to poison you again, we have him. He pressed his intercom. Send in Paul Henderson. The man who entered was maybe 52 solid build, with alert eyes that had spent years reading people. Former Chicago PD Detective Raymond explained now private investigation. Mr. Peton, Paul said, opening his laptop. I've been digging into your daughter-in-law. Rebecca Morgan is what she calls herself now. 4 years ago, she was Nicole Patterson. Caroline's hand tightened on mine. Paul pulled up a police report. Nicole was married to Thomas Morgan, a 52-year-old investment banker in Oak Park. 4 years ago, he fell down the stairs at home. Death ruled accidental, but his daughter didn't believe it. Accidental? I repeated, my blood going cold. Melissa Morgan was 26 then. She pushed hard for investigation, but there wasn't enough evidence. Nicole inherited $2.4 million, then vanished. Changed her name legally 3 years ago, right before meeting your son. I stared at Thomas Morgan's photo on screen, a smiling man at some family gathering, never suspecting his young wife was planning his death, just like I hadn't suspected Trevor. She's done this before, I said slowly. Or Trevor knew exactly what he was getting. Raymond interjected. Those messages mention her understanding the situation. What if he chose her specifically because she had experience? The room tilted. My son deliberately partnering with a killer. There's more, Paul continued. Derek Brooks works at Medchem Labs. Has access to controlled substances. 3 months ago, inventory showed discrepancies in potassium compounds. Small amounts, nothing triggering investigation, but enough to kill you. If we prove Derek supplied the poison, that's conspiracy to commit murder. Raymond said he'll flip on Trevor and Rebecca to save himself. I contacted Melissa Morgan this morning, Paul added. She's 30, now lives in Evanston. When I told her about your case, he paused. She wants justice for her father and for you. She'll testify about her suspicions regarding Thomas's death. Raymond steepled his fingers. Here's the planned Saturday night dinner at your house. We install cameras and recording equipment, all legal, on your property. We give Trevor the perfect opportunity to finish what he started. My team includes a paramedic on standby. If Trevor poisons a drink, we switch it before you consume anything. And if he suspects something, Caroline asked. He won't, Paul said, confidently. You're dying on his schedule. Why would you suspect your devoted son? Raymond's expression turned serious. Douglas, understand this. Once we do this, there's no going back. Your son goes to prison. So does Rebecca. Your family as you knew it ends. Are you certain I thought about 6 months of Trevor handing me death with a smile? I thought about Thomas Morgan tumbling down those stairs while his wife watched. I thought about Melissa, 4 years of knowing but unable to prove. I thought about the blood test, 1 to 2 weeks left. He stopped being my son the moment he decided I was worth more dead than alive. My voice came out steady cold. We have 6 days. Let's make them count. Raymond nodded. Then let's get to work. Friday morning, an unmarked van pulled into our Gold Coast driveway. Paul Henderson's team worked quickly, transforming our home into a surveillance grid. 8 cameras, Paul explained. Living room, dining room, kitchen pinhole lenses, invisible audio in the light fixtures. He handed me a device. This connects to monitors in the van. Raymond and I watch everything real time. And the medical team, I asked, paramedic van 2 houses down Wednesday night. Dr. Hayes' colleague inside with chelation drugs and cardiac equipment. If Trevor gets poison into your system, we have 90 seconds. By afternoon, our home looked normal. Nothing betrayed the cameras, the microphones, but I felt them constantly. Saturday and Sunday blurred into rehearsal. Caroline and I practiced the switch 100 times. Me reaching for the whiskey, her accidentally knocking it over, substituting an identical glass. It has to look natural. Raymond coached. Trevor's smart. If he suspects setup, he walks. By Sunday night, the motion was muscle memory. Monday morning, I picked up my phone. My hand shook, scrolling to Trevor's number. 6 months of I love you, Dad. Text stared back. 6 months of lies. He answered on the second ring. Dad, how are you feeling? Dying thanks to you. Tired son. Can you and Rebecca come to dinner Wednesday? Just the 4 of us. I've been thinking about family. Silence then. Of course, Dad. What time? 7 Euro. We'll be there. Family is what matters, Dad. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. The next 2 days crawled. I continued chelation treatments at Northwestern Memorial. Dr. Hayes monitoring my levels. The poison was diminishing, but slowly. Tuesday night, I barely slept. At 3 a.m., Caroline whispered, "We can still call this off and watch him walk on a technicality." I stared at the ceiling. "No, we finished this." Wednesday arrived with cruel normalcy. The sun rose over Lake Michigan. Chicago went about its business, and I prepared to have dinner with my son, knowing he planned to kill me. Paul called at noon. Equipment check complete. Cameras, operational medical team briefed. We're ready. So am I. I lied. Caroline spent the afternoon cooking real pot roast, real mashed potatoes. The smells filling our house were achingly familiar reminders of 1,000 family dinners when I'd believed my son loved me. By 6:30 p.m., everything was ready. Paul's van sat 3 houses down. The paramedic team waited around the corner. 8 cameras watched our dining room. Carolyn finished setting the table. She'd placed the marked whiskey glass at my seat. An identical backup sat within reach, ready for the switch. I checked my watch. 6:45 p.m. "You look pale," Caroline said softly. "I'm about to have dinner with my son while he tries to murder me." I attempted to smile. Pale seems appropriate. She took my face in her hands. "We're going to end this tonight." My watch read 650. I walked to the window, watching for headlights. Somewhere nearby, a paramedic checked equipment. In a van down the street, cameras prepared to record my son's betrayal. In this dining room, a marked glass waited. The doorbell would ring soon. Trevor would smile, hug me, ask how I was feeling, and then he'd try to finish what he started 6 months ago. I poured myself bourbon, real clean, untainted, and waited for my son to arrive. At exactly $700, the doorbell rang. Trevor stood there with Rebecca, both dressed for celebration. My son wore a navy blazer, that confident smile I'd once been proud of. Rebecca looked elegant in a black dress, eyes bright with anticipation. Dad. Trevor hugged me. I forced myself not to recoil. "You look good." "No thanks to you." "Some days are better than others." Caroline emerged from the kitchen. "Trevor, Rebecca, so glad you could make it." We settled in the living room with small talk that felt like swallowing glass. Trevor asked about my health, my retirement, the future of the estate. Rebecca's hand occasionally touched his arm. Silent communication. Trevor helped me get drinks. I stood. "I've got that 18-year Macallan you love." "Of course, Dad." In my study, I poured bourbon into 2 crystal glasses. Above us, a pinhole camera recorded everything. My hands were steady despite my hammering heart. "I've been thinking about what you said," Trevor said casually. "About family being what matters. Everything I've built was for family." I set down the bottle. "I'll be right back." Forgot the ice. I stepped into the hallway, leaving Trevor alone with the glasses for exactly 10 seconds. 10 seconds for my son to make his choice. When I returned with ice, Trevor stood by the window, hands in pockets. The glasses sat on my desk, amber liquid catching light. I dropped ice into both glasses, handed one to Trevor. We returned to the dining room where Caroline had set out pot roast. The marked whiskey glass sat at my place. Trevor raised his glass. To family, I echoed. I brought the glass halfway to my lips when Caroline moved behind me, reaching for the serving dish. Her elbow connected with my arm, practiced 100 times, and the glass flew from my hand. Crystal shattered against hardwood bourbon, splashing across the tablecloth. "Oh God, Douglas." "I'm so sorry." Rebecca's face went white, her eyes wide with horror and fury. Trevor's jaw clenched, knuckles whitening. "It's fine," I said, voice deliberately weak. "Actually, I'm not feeling well." My chest. I pressed my hand to my sternum. "Dad." Trevor half rose. "Should we call 911? "No, just need rest." "Maybe we should call it a night. We just got here," Rebecca said tightly. "Sorry to cut the evening short." I stood carefully. Trevor, can you see yourselves out? My son stared at me calculating, wondering if the poison had somehow worked. Of course, Dad feel better. He kissed my cheek Judas with a smile. Caroline walked them to the door. Through the window, I watched them reach their car. Trevor's hand shook, unlocking the door. They pulled away and I picked up my phone. Paul, you get it. Every second in 4K, Trevor adding powder to your glass, clear as day. I walked to where crystal shards glittered. Somewhere in that spilled bourbon was enough poison to stop my heart. 30 minutes later, sirens cut through Gold Coast. I stood at my window watching red and blue lights converge 2 blocks away, Trevor Street. My phone buzzed. Paul's text, both in custody. It's over. Caroline stood beside me. 43 years of marriage. She'd saved my life tonight. It's over, I whispered. Her hand found mine. No, it's just beginning. At 9:30 p.m., Chicago PD descended on Trevor's townhouse in Lincoln Park. I watched from Paul's van as officers led my son and daughter-in-law out in handcuffs, their faces pale under the streetlights. Trevor kept looking back at his door like he was waiting to wake up from a nightmare. He wouldn't wake up. This was real. Search team found everything. Paul said, listening to his radio. White powder residue in an envelope in Rebecca's purse. The vitamin bottle still half full of poisoned capsules in Trevor's bathroom cabinet. Text messages on both phones. It's airtight. Douglas? I nodded, unable to speak. My son had kept those poisoned vitamins in his bathroom like they were aspirin. My phone rang at midnight, Trevor's number. I stared at it, watching it vibrate in my hand. Don't answer. Caroline said I answered, Dad, please? Trevor's voice was wrecked, desperate. This is a mistake, a misunderstanding. You have to tell them. Tell them what? That you didn't poison me for 6 months. That the cameras didn't record you putting powder in my drink tonight. Dad, I can explain. No. The word came out flat foul. You can explain to your lawyer, don't call this number again. I hung up. Blocked his number. 40 years of fatherhood ended with a button press. Friday morning, Detective Paul Henderson called. Trevor's asking to see you. You don't have to go. I want to, I said. Caroline looked at me sharply but didn't argue. Some conversations had to happen, even the ones that destroyed you. The interrogation room at the Chicago PD Central District smelled like stale coffee and fear. They'd put Trevor in an orange jumpsuit that made him look younger, smaller. When I walked in, he stood so fast his chair scraped against concrete. Dad, sit down. My voice carried command I'd used in boardrooms for 40 years. Trevor sat. I took the chair across from him, Detective Henderson standing by the door. A camera in the corner recorded everything. More evidence for the case that would send my son to prison. You wanted to talk, I said. Talk. Trevor's hands shook on the metal table. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You poisoned me for 6 months. How much farther could it go? I was desperate. Tears started down his face. The debts, Dad. Crypto investments went bad. I lost $700,000. Then I borrowed from the wrong people, got in deeper. I owed $1.1 million. They were threatening me, said they'd kill me if I didn't pay. So you decided to kill me instead. I didn't know what else to do. I'd already taken $400,000 from the company. You embezzled from me. The betrayal kept finding new depths. I was going to pay it back, I swear. But it wasn't enough. And they kept calling, kept threatening, and He put his head in his hands. I panicked. You planned. I kept my voice level for 6 months. You planned. You contacted Derek Brooks, got the poison-tested dosages. You watched me get weaker and pretended to care. That's not panic, Trevor. That's premeditation. Rebecca helped me see there was a way out. Don't. I leaned forward. Don't you dare blame her. You made this choice. I'm not blaming her. She understood the pressure I was under. She'd been through difficult situations before. You mean when she murdered her first husband? Trevor's face went white. That she told me that was an accident. And you believed her? Or did you choose a woman who'd already killed because you needed someone who knew how silence? In that silence, I saw the truth. Trevor had known exactly what Rebecca was. Maybe not at first, but eventually. And he'd stayed because she could teach him how to get away with murder. I love you, Dad, Trevor whispered. I know you don't believe that, but I do. I never wanted to hurt you. You wanted me dead. I wanted the pain to stop, the calls, the threats, the fear. I just wanted it all to stop. I stood slowly. Every one of my 67 years weighing on me. You know what stops now? You, us. Whatever relationship we had, whatever love I had for you, it stops right here. I looked down at my son, the stranger wearing Trevor's face. You're not my son anymore. You're just a failed murderer who's going to prison. Dad, please. Goodbye, Trevor. I walked to the door. Behind me, Trevor's voice rose to a shout. Dad, Dad, please don't leave me, Dad. His screams followed me down the hallway, through the police station, into the parking lot where Caroline waited. She took one look at my face and pulled me into her arms. It's done, I said into her shoulder. He's gone. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I let myself break. 6 months later, I sat in Cook County Criminal Courthouse, watching my son stand trial for attempting to murder me. Judge Nathan Fitzgerald presided, silver-haired and stern. The people versus Trevor Peton and Rebecca Morgan. Charges conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and first-degree murder of Thomas Morgan. District Attorney Charles Norton stood. Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming, he began with the video. On screens throughout the courtroom, we watched Trevor in my study glancing toward the door, then pulling an envelope from his pocket, white powder into my whiskey glass. 10 seconds in crystal clear 4K. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Trevor stared at the table, face pale. This video was obtained legally from Mr. Peton's home. Norton continued, note the timestamp. 7:14 p.m., October 11th. Next came physical evidence. The envelope with potassium chloride residue. The vitamin bottle from Trevor's bathroom. 23 poison capsules remaining. For 6 months, Trevor Peton systematically poisoned his father. Norton said, each vitamin brought Douglas Peton closer to cardiac arrest. Dr. Hayes testified about my blood work, about how close I'd come to death. Days, maybe hours. Then Norton dropped the bomb. Thomas Morgan died 4 years ago, in what was ruled accidental 6 months ago. Based on new evidence, his body was exhumed. Photos appeared. Forensic reports, bone samples, arsenic, massive quantities. Thomas Morgan was poisoned over months, and the person who inherited $2.4 million he pointed. Rebecca Morgan, then Nicole Patterson. Melissa Morgan took the stand, tears streaming. My father was healthy until Nicole came. Within 6 months, he was weak, dizzy. She convinced him to change his will. 2 weeks later, he fell. Her voice broke. I always knew she killed him. The evidence was crushing. Messages between Trevor and Derek, Derek's confession, 8 years for testimony. Lab records. Financial records showing Trevor's $1.1 million debt, $400,000 embezzlement. Then came the turning point. Trevor took the stand. Mr. Peton, his lawyer, began, explain your relationship with Rebecca Morgan. Trevor looked at Rebecca, then the jury. She manipulated me. The poison, the plan, it was her idea. She'd done it before. She threatened me. Said if I didn't help, she'd destroy me. The courtroom erupted. Rebecca lunged up, screaming, you liar. It was your idea, you contacted Derek. Order. Judge Fitzgerald's gavel cracked. Norton smiled grimly, reading from his phone. Text from Trevor Peton to Derek Brooks, April 3rd. I need something that causes heart attacks. My father has a condition. No one will question it. April 3rd. Your Honor, 3 months before Rebecca knew about the plan, Trevor's face crumbled. Rebecca stared at him with pure hatred. The jury deliberated 40 minutes. On all counts, the forewoman announced guilty. Judge Fitzgerald's voice was ice. Trevor Peton, 22 years. Rebecca Morgan, 35 years, 20 for Thomas Morgan's murder. 15 for conspiracy against Douglas Peton. Derek Brooks, 8 years. Trevor turned, finding me in the crowd. Dad, please. I stood and walked out. Behind me, his voice rose to desperate shouting. I didn't look back. In the hallway, Melissa found me. Thank you. For 4 years, no one believed me. You gave my father justice. Carolyn's arm around me was the only thing keeping me upright. 22 years. Trevor would be 60 when he got out. Let's go home, Carolyn said softly. We walked out into Chicago's sunlight, leaving the courthouse behind. 1 year after the trial, I turned 68 in a small apartment in Evanston overlooking Lake Michigan. No retirement party this time, just Caroline, a quiet dinner, and the sound of waves. It was everything I needed. We'd sold the Gold Coast house. Too Many Ghosts sold Peton Investment Group to $16.88 million. All donated half to organizations supporting elderly financial abuse victims, half to the Thomas Morgan Foundation, established by Melissa to help families investigate suspicious deaths. The money that nearly got me killed now protected others. Trevor's letters started arriving 3 months into his sentence, one every month like clockwork. Dad, I'm getting help. Therapy. I understand now what I did. Dad, I think about you every day. I'm sorry, Dad. Please write back, just once. I read them all, never responded. The letters sat in a drawer unread by anyone but me. On a cool November afternoon, Judith Palmer visited Caroline's friend from book club. We sat on my balcony watching sailboats drift across gray water. Have you forgiven him? She asked. I thought about it, really thought. I'm learning to forgive myself, I said finally. For not seeing who he'd become. For trusting blindly, I paused. But Trevor, I don't know if I can. Forgiveness isn't mandatory, Judith said gently. Survival is. That evening, Caroline and I walked along the lakefront. November wind cut through our jackets, but neither of us wanted to go inside. What did you learn from all this? She asked. I watched the water, thinking about Trevor handing me those vitamins every morning, about Rebecca's calculated smile, about realizing my own son wanted me dead. I learned that love doesn't justify betrayal, I said slowly. That family isn't always safe, that the people closest to you can become strangers. I squeezed her hand, and I learned that 43 years of marriage means something. You saved my life, Carolyn. We saved each other, she said. Maybe she was right. We're 68 and 62 now, starting over with nothing but each other and the life we rebuilt from ashes. Some would call that failure, losing everything, betrayed by your only child, beginning again at retirement age. I call it survival. Trevor will be released when he's 60. I'll be 89 if I'm still here. I don't know if I'll see him. That's a decision for future Douglas. Right now, I'm focused on today. Today, I'm alive. Today, Caroline and I watched sunrise over Lake Michigan. Today, we had coffee and talked about volunteering at the community center. Today was enough. I'm 68 years old. I'm still breathing. And I've learned the most important lesson. It's never too late to start over. Never too late to choose yourself. Never too late to build a life worth living. Looking back, I see what I missed. I trusted blindly when I should have questioned. This is my true story, and it's a warning I pray you never need. Don't be like me. Don't ignore warning signs because you love someone. This true story nearly ended with my death, and only God's grace through Carolyn saved me. Here's what I learned. First, verify trust even with your children. Second, protect yourself legally before crisis hits. Third, listen to your spouse when they sense danger. God gave me Caroline for a reason. Some nights I still wonder where I failed as a father. But my pastor said, Douglas, you can't control another person's choices. Those words given by God through him brought peace. This grandpa's story's warning isn't unique. Financial elder abuse happens daily. Children draining elderly parents. But with vigilance, we survive. We rebuild. If my true story helps one person recognize danger, if one grandpa verifies those helpful vitamins or checks suspicious transfers, then sharing my pain was worth it. So I'm asking, have you seen this? Know someone at risk? Comment your city below? Let's build awareness. Share this if you know an elderly person who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you believe grandpa stories like these real grandpa stories from survivors deserve to be told. Your engagement saves lives. Don't let my story become theirs. God bless. Stay vigilant. They told me not to come to my own daughter's wedding because I didn't look important enough. So I made one quiet phone call that night. And by sunrise, the entire $480,000 wedding was gone. And when they demanded to know who destroyed everything I walked in and let them read my name on every contract. Before I continue, let me ask you something quietly. If you're still listening, consider subscribing to this channel and tell me where you're listening from. Every story I share carries a piece of my life, and knowing you're here makes telling it easier. I live in a small house on the west side of Dayton. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. Nothing impressive, nothing meant to be noticed. The furnace clicks too loud in winter. The porch light flickers when rain comes down hard, and the floor by the sink still cacks if you step just right. I've known about that creak for years. Kept meaning to fix it. Life always gave me something else first. Most mornings I wake before sunrise. Not because I need to anymore, but because my body remembers. 40 years of loading docks and early shifts leave their mark. I shuffle into the kitchen, kettle on, 2 scoops of grounds, no sugar, just a little milk. My hands aren't pretty now, thick knuckles, a scar across my thumb from a strap snapping in '89. But they still work. That matters to me. I sit at the table by the window. Same chair I've used since my wife passed. The cushion dips where I lean. I always lean left. Across the street, Mrs. Donnelly walks her dog at exactly 6:12. Every morning the dog pulls. She pretends not to notice. Life settles into patterns when you let it. Around here, people know me as Walter Reed, retired freight supervisor, drives an old pickup, still mows his own lawn. They wave when I pass. Sometimes they stop to talk. No one ever looks twice. And that's exactly how I wanted it. What they don't see. What my daughter never saw was the quiet exit I made years ago. When I sold my logistics firm, I didn't throw a party, didn't buy a condo in Florida, didn't change my life at all. I folded the money behind a holding company, kept my name off everything, then went right back to living small. Not because I was ashamed, because I was afraid. Afraid that if my daughter knew, she'd stop seeing me as her father and start seeing me as a solution. Her name is Lena. As a kid, she was all elbows and opinions. Smart, curious, always asking why. I raised her alone after her mother died, packed lunches, sat through dance recital, worked double shifts to keep the lights on. Some nights I came home so tired, I slept sitting up in the chair. But I never missed her birthday, not once. When she graduated college, I cried in the car. Didn't tell anyone. I was proud of her. I still am. Or I was. She met Evan Clark 2 years ago at a networking event. That should have told me something. Evan talks fast, always has a phone in his hand, always between calls. He wears confidence like a jacket. Looks good from far away. Starts to itch if you get too close. The first time he came to my house, his eyes scanned the room, like a realtor's. He didn't mean to, he just couldn't help himself. I offered him coffee, he declined, said he was cutting caffeine. He asked what I did before retirement. I told him the truth, just not all of it. Logistics, I said? Warehouse work management. He nodded politely. The kind of nod people give when they've already moved on. I saw Lena watching him, checking his reactions, making sure he approved. That hurt more than I expected. Still, I kept quiet. When they announced the wedding, it sounded less like joy and more like a press release. Venue guest list, sponsors, the Brighton Grand Hotel, downtown crystal chandeliers, valet parking. I smiled, said, "Congratulations," wrote a modest check for the engagement party. What I never said, what I never planned to say, was that every major deposit, every luxury upgrade, every angel contribution came from me. Through a company Evan loved to brag about, a benefactor he admired, a name he trusted. He never knew it was mine. I thought helping quietly was the safest way to love. The week before the wedding, I pulled my old suit from the closet. Navy blue, a little tight in the shoulders, worn at the cuffs. That suit buried my wife. It was good enough to walk my daughter down the aisle. I pressed it carefully, hung it by the cabinet knob, stepped back. For a moment, I felt calm. I pictured Lena as a child barefoot in the yard, laughing at nothing. I thought about the future. Grandkids, maybe. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. Evan's name lit the screen. I answered with a smile I didn't know would be my last. Because that quiet, ordinary night, that small kitchen, that old suit, that steady calm was about to break. And I didn't know it then, but that silence was the last real peace I'd feel for a long time. "Walter," Evan said. No greeting, no warmth, just my name, clipped and careful. The kind of voice people use when they've already made up their mind. I leaned against the counter, the kettle was still warm. Steam lightly fogged the window. "What's wrong?" I asked. I meant Lena. I always meant Lena. There was a pause, a breath he didn't want me to hear. "We've been finalizing arrangements," he said. "Guest flow, seating, optics. The word didn't belong in my kitchen." "Okay," I said slowly. Another pause. Longer this time. "We have investors flying in," he continued. "Board members, a city councilman, people who matter. So we need to keep the ceremony focused." I felt my hand rest against the counter's edge. The laminate was chipped there. I'd noticed it 100 times. Never thought it mattered. Focused how I asked, he exhaled, impatient now. "Walter, don't take this the wrong way." That's when my chest tightened. "We think it's best if you skip the ceremony." I didn't answer right away. Didn't answer right. The refrigerator hummed behind me. A car passed outside. Life kept moving. "Skip the ceremony," I repeated. "Yes," he said quickly, relieved almost. "You can come later." "After the reception starts around 10 Zurare. He cleared his throat. "There's a service entrance near the kitchen. Staff will let you in." Service entrance. I looked down at my hands. Thick fingers, old scars, hands that built the ground he was standing on. "You don't want me walking my daughter down the aisle?" I said. Well, he hesitated. "It doesn't really fit the image." Image. The word landed hard. I swallowed. Didn't rush myself. "Does Lena know about this?" I asked. Silence. Not a dropped call, not a bad signal. A silence that answered everything. "She's emotional right now," Evan said finally. "Weddings do that, but she understands the bigger picture." The bigger picture. This is about our future. Did she agree?" I asked quietly. "That I'm not important enough to be seen?" His tone sharpened. "Walter, you're being dramatic," he snapped. "This isn't personal. It's strategic." Strategic. I closed my eyes. I saw Lena at 8 years old holding my hand at her mother's funeral, her fingers shaking her grip tight. I opened my eyes again. So I wait until 10 her, I said. Come in through the back, smile. Say hello once the important people leave. Yes, he said. That's the compromise. Something shifted then. Not anger. Something colder. Don't call Lena tonight, he added. You'll only upset her. And then he hung up. Just like that, I stood there for a long time. Didn't move. The suit still hung from the cabinet knob. The fabric caught the light. I reached out, ran my fingers along the sleeve, cheap cloth, worn thread, honest. I didn't shout, didn't throw the phone. I poured a glass of water, took one slow sip. I wasn't heartbroken. I was done pretending. I walked to the small desk in the hallway, opened the drawer. Inside was a yellow notepad, a pen, and a business card. Martin Hale, attorney, the only man who knew everything. I dialed. He answered on the second ring. Walter, everything ready for tomorrow? No, I said. My voice surprised me, steady flat. We need to stop everything. There was a pause. The kind that weighs consequences. Stopping everything means everything he said. I know. The venue, the vendors, the funding, his company? Yes. And Lena will feel this. I know. I looked back at the suit. They only want important people, I said. So let's remind them who decides what importance costs. Another pause, then quietly understood. I want it frozen tonight, I said. Every line, every contract, no delays. It will be messy, Martin warned. By morning, I said there won't be a wedding. I hung up. I folded the suit carefully, placed it back in the closet. Then I made a sandwich, washed the plate, turned off the lights. I went to bed early, slept deeper than I had in years. At dawn, I woke without an alarm. The sky was pale calm. My phone was already buzzing missed calls, voicemails stacking up. I didn't listen. I made coffee, sat down, and as the sun rose, the world they built on my silence began to fall apart. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was still coming, because once respect is withdrawn, it doesn't beg to return. And that's when I knew I would not stay silent. The phone kept vibrating on the table. I let it. The coffee cooled in my mug. I didn't touch it. Outside, the neighborhood woke up like any other day. A trash truck groaned down the street. A dog barked at nothing in particular. Someone fought with an engine that wouldn't turn over. My world stayed still. I finally picked up the phone around 8. 23 missed calls, messages stacked tight with panic from Evan, from Lena, from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't open any of them. Instead, I walked through the house slowly, as if I were seeing it for the first time. The dent in the hallway wall from when Lena slammed her bedroom door at 16. The crooked bookshelf I built myself solid even when it leaned. The photo by the window, her graduation day. She's smiling wide. I'm just outside the frame. I was always behind the camera. I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress sighed under my weight. For a moment, doubt crept in. Maybe I went too far. Maybe I should have called her first, explained. But then Evan's voice came back to me. Service entrance optics and Lena's silence. I let the doubt pass. By noon, the truth was everywhere. The Brighton Grand canceled the ballroom. Catering trucks turned around mid-route. The string quartet never unloaded their cases. Credit cards declined. Deposits reversed. Emails bounced back unanswered. Guests arrived dressed for celebration and found locked doors and confused staff whispering behind desks. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. Around 2 in the afternoon, Lena called again. This time I answered. Dad? She said. Her voice was sharp, not frightened, angry. What did you do? I closed my eyes. I made things honest. I said, you ruined everything, she snapped. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? Humiliating? The words sat heavy in my chest. "They're laughing at us," she said. "At Evan. At me." I waited, didn't interrupt. "Why didn't you just stay home like we asked? You could have avoided all of this." I spoke slowly, carefully. "You didn't ask," I said. "You decided. That's not fair," she shot back. "You don't understand how things work." I looked at the photo by the window. "I understand exactly how they work," I said. "I just didn't know I raised you to agree with it." She went quiet. Then her voice came back colder. "This was never your money to control." That one landed. I stayed very still. "I worked nights so you could sleep safely," I said. "I sold pieces of myself so you'd never worry about bills." She cut me off. "This is emotional blackmail," she said. "You think your sacrifice gives you the right to humiliate us, not me, not family, us?" I'm hanging up. She said, "Don't contact me again until you're ready to fix this." The line went dead. I held the phone for a long time. Then I set it face down on the table. That night I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dark. Rain tapped the windows, softly, steady, patient. I thought about Lena as a little girl, how she used to crawl into my bed during storms, how she'd whisper, "Don't let go." I wondered when she stopped believing I wouldn't. Sleep came late. I got up, went to the kitchen, opened the drawer. Inside was an old envelope worn at the edges, her name written on it. The night she came to me shaking. Debt she couldn't explain. A man who disappeared, I paid it quietly, protected her. And in return she signed papers she never read, not as punishment. As protection so no one could ever use her again. I hadn't planned on remembering that night. But betrayal has a way of reopening old doors. By morning, Evan's name was everywhere. Funding pulled, meetings canned, promises exposed. His company collapsed faster than I expected. Confidence doesn't hold weight without money underneath it. Still, none of it felt like victory. Victory is loud. This was hollow. I missed my daughter. But I also knew something had changed. Something that couldn't be undone. I stood by the window as dawn returned, watched the light touch the street, and that's when I began to think very carefully. Not about revenge, about truth, about timing, about what silence could still do. Because patience, I realized, isn't weakness, it's restraint. If you're still listening, thank you. Stories like this remind me that patience isn't weakness. It's quiet strength. Some nights, even now, I catch myself whispering her name. Not in anger, but in disbelief. I didn't rush anything after that. I learned long ago rushing is how you ruin things. So I went back to routine. I mowed the lawn, replaced the porch bulb that flickered for years, tightened the loose hinge on the back door, small repairs steady the mind. Every evening I sat at the desk in the hallway. Same yellow notepad, same pen. At first I didn't write names, just dates, amounts, connections. Truth has a shape if you let it form slowly. Evan's company wasn't built on strength. It was built on reflection. Shell accounts stacked on loans. Loans stacked on promises. Promises stacked on reputation. And reputation is lighter than people think. I made a few calls, not many. One to Martin, one to a compliance officer I trusted. One to a man who still remembered who helped him when no one else would. No threats, no pressure, just questions. Is this structure solid? Who actually guarantees this line? What happens if funding pauses temporarily? I listened more than I spoke. Silence makes people talk. Days passed, then weeks. Evan's voicemails changed tone. Anger softened into fear. Fear turned into pleading. I never answered. Lena sent one message, short, controlled. "You've made your point." I read it once, then folded the paper I'd been writing on and slid it back into the drawer. This wasn't about a point, it was about balance. Late one night I opened the filing cabinet in the garage, the old metal one that smells like dust and oil. Inside were records I kept not out of suspicion, but out of habit: contracts, signatures, amendments. One document sat on top, stamped notarized. The contingency clause, the one Evan never read. It gave me the right to withdraw support if the company's public conduct materially misrepresented its values. Optics, I thought. Funny word. I smiled then just once. This wasn't revenge. It was alignment. That's when the title phrase came back to me. The one people would repeat later like a warning they wished they'd understood sooner. They told me not to come to the wedding. I didn't plan to show up hungry. I planned to show up undeniable. Timing mattered. The Bright and Grand scheduled a closed-door meeting. Investors, partners, damage control. That's when Martin arranged my attendance. Not announced, not hidden, just present. That morning I chose a different suit, charcoal gray, still modest, still mine. I drove myself parked 2 blocks away, walking steadies the heart. Inside the lobby, voices lowered as I passed. No one recognized me. That was fine. When the meeting began, I took a seat near the back. I listened. Evan spoke too loudly. Confidence trying to outrun a shadow. Then Martin cleared his throat. Before we continue, he said, "There's a clarification we need to address." He looked at me. "Mr. Reed, would you care to explain?" I stood, slowly adjusted my jacket. "I won't take much time," I said. "Only enough for the truth." Folders slid across the table. Pages turned, eyes widened, ownership lines, funding paths, my name finally visible. A murmur spread, then nothing. Silence. Evan stared at me. His mouth open-closed again. I met his eyes. No anger, no triumph, just clarity. "This isn't punishment," I said calmly. "It's consequence." Then I sat down. The room never recovered. That evening I walked home instead of driving. The city felt quieter somehow. The stage was set. All I had to do now was wait. They had no idea that silence can build walls stronger than words. The truth didn't arrive loudly, it settled. That was the first thing I noticed. After the meeting, no one raised their voice. No one slammed the door. They simply stopped returning Evan's calls. Emails went unanswered. Meetings quietly disappeared from calendars. Doors closed without making a sound. I stayed home. I cooked soup from scratch, chopped onions slowly, let them soften instead of burn. Patience tastes better that way. 3 days later, Evan showed up at my house. I saw his car through the front window, parked crooked hazard lights, blinking like an apology. I didn't rush. I finished drying the plate in my hands, folded the towel, set it down carefully. Then I opened the door. He looked smaller. Same suit wrinkled, now confidence gone from the seams. "Walter," he said, his voice cracked halfway through my name. I stepped aside, let him in. He didn't sit, just paced the room. I didn't know, he said quickly. I swear if I had, I raised my hand. Not in anger, just enough. "You knew what mattered to you," I said. That was enough. He stopped pacing. "They're freezing everything," he said. "The investors, vendors, even my parents' accounts." I nodded once. "That happens," I said. He stared at me. "Please," he said. "I'll fix this. I'll apologize. I'll tell Lena." I looked at him fully then. A man trained to perform remorse, not to feel it. "Sit," I said. He did. I opened the drawer and took out the envelope, the one I avoided touching for years. I placed it on the table between us. "What's that?" he asked. "A reminder," I said. He opened it. Reed color drained from his face. "The structure, the signatures, the clause. You own everything," he whispered. "No," I corrected gently. "I protected it." He looked up. "What do you want?" he asked. I leaned back in my chair. "I want you to tell the truth," I said. "To the investors, the press?" Lena, his jaw tightened. "And if I don't," I waited. Outside, a bird landed on the porch rail, tilted its head, then flew away. "Then the silence continues," I said. He nodded slowly. That night, statements were released. Funding officially withdrawn. They called it strategic misalignment. The next morning, Lena came. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes red but dry. I protected myself, I replied. That wasn't your wedding, she said. It was mine, I exhaled. You didn't want me there? I said quietly. You made that clear. She looked away. He lied to me, she said. So did you, I replied. About me. Her breath caught. I thought you were weak, she admitted. I thought I'd outgrown you. I nodded. That happens, I said. But it doesn't excuse forgetting who carried you when you couldn't stand, she cried then quietly. Not for the wedding, for the distance. She reached for my hand. I let her touch it briefly. Then I pulled back. Not yet, I said. Weeks later, the investigation became public. Financial misrepresentation, family involvement. Evan's parents were charged. His name appeared in filings. One night he tried to break into my garage. The camera caught everything. The crowbar, the panic. He was arrested 2 blocks away. In court, he told them everything, including things Lena never knew. The sentence wasn't long, but it was final. I didn't attend. When the news broke, Lena called. I don't have anyone, she said, her voice smaller now. I know, I said. Can I come home? She asked. I looked around the living room, the chair by the window, the photo on the shelf. I love you, I said, but saving you again would break us both. There was a long silence. Then she whispered, I understand. And in that silence, I finally felt free. Because sometimes the loudest moment in life is when you choose to say nothing at all. These days, my mornings move slower. I wake when the light reaches the wall, not when my body jolts me awake. I make coffee, sit by the window, watch people hurry past without needing to follow. Lena writes sometimes short messages, careful words, updates about work, about learning how to stand on her own. I read everyone. I don't always answer. That choice still weighs on me. But it also keeps me steady. I learned something late in life. Something I wish I'd understood sooner. Love isn't proven by how often you rescue someone. Sometimes it's proven by knowing when to step back and let them feel the ground for themselves. People ask if I regret it, if I wish I'd done things differently. If I feel victorious, I don't feel victorious. I feel finished. They told me not to come to the wedding. At the time, that felt like rejection. Now I see it differently. Now I see it. It was a doorway, one I needed to walk through alone. Respect isn't demanded. It isn't bought. And it isn't inherited. Respect is earned quietly and lost just as quietly. When Evan looked past me, when Lena stayed silent, they showed me who they were becoming. And when I stayed calm, when I chose patience over reaction, I finally showed myself who I had always been. I still love my daughter. That hasn't changed. But love doesn't mean shrinking so others can feel taller. It doesn't mean giving up dignity to keep the peace. Some evenings I sit on the porch and listen to the wind move through the trees. I think about my wife, about the years that shaped me, about the man I became when no one was watching. I sleep well now. Maybe justice isn't loud. Maybe it isn't fast. Maybe it doesn't clap when it arrives. Maybe justice is simply this: being able to sit in silence without feeling small. That's the peace I earned. That's the truth I carried for years before I finally let it speak. If this were your story, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe if you'd like to hear more quiet truths like this one.